This is my third video on cooking steak, but this one is very different. First, because I'm using a low-cost tough cut of meat and showing you how to make it tender, and second, because I'm introducing how to use the principle of sous vide, but without any special equipment. Yes, this method is more work than simply frying, broiling, or roasting a steak, but if you try those methods with ROUND, you'll end up with something very tough and stringy. This will produce a steak that's tender and very flavorful. It's not a braise. What you end up with is just like a more expensive cut of steak.
The ingredients here are really quite simple. I'm going to use a couple of pieces of ROUND. These are quite thick, as you can see. That will help. You don't have to do that, but it will help if you have thick pieces. I've got some herbs. Sometimes I use thyme, sometimes basil, but always rosemary and a couple cloves of garlic for two steaks like this. Basil versus thyme, sometimes it's just a matter of mood. You have to try both of them to see which one you like better. Some olive oil. This is beef stock I made myself. It's extremely thick, very, very rich. It's not stock really, it's broth, and it's very, very concentrated broth. It's not quite the demi-glace stage, but it's close. And we have two tools here. These are Jacquard devices, and one of them has the set of 3 blades. One of them has the set of 1 blade, 1 row of blades. And if you read volume 2 of my cookbook, you know why you do this. But I'm going to show you right now here anyway. First thing is you want to run the Jacquard device along this way. You can't do it with the one that has 3 blades because the resistance to going through the meat is just too heavy. It won't go through smoothly. The more fibers you cut, the less chewing you'll have to do later, and the more the marinade will penetrate. Now you have to be careful when you do this so that you don't slip and impale your finger in the process. And that's probably why the manufacturers of this device don't tell you to do it this way. They tell you to go like this across the meat. Well, we're going to do that too. But this is extremely effective and important. Just be very careful you don't injure yourself. This is a serious injury waiting to happen if you're not careful. Okay, now we could use the same single row of blades across here. This won't be very effective. When you're going on this one, now we want to stomp on it hard with this. And don't be afraid to use it a lot. After all, your teeth, when you chew it, are going to do a lot more damage than this to the meat. Okay, this piece is pretty good. No, it's a little bit thinner now too. It's kind of a workout to do that when I'm reaching around the camera and have my arms at full length out in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and then we'll go to the next stage. I went back and stomped on these some more. Now there's a band of fat here that you could trim off right now, but we're going to trim these up later after they're cooked. And this fat, especially after it's browned some, is going to add flavor to the dish. So I'm just going to leave that on there. Season one side here. There's some reasons to that. This is going to be sous vide in with this broth that's fairly salty, and it may get some additional salt again later on the final stage of cooking. So you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to end up with something that tastes like beef jerky. I'm also using freshly cracked black pepper. Make sure it's coarsely ground. If you use fine ground, the pepper will burn. Okay. Now we're going to give it a little bit of olive oil right now. Oil the meat, not the pan. I'm pretty sure I've told you that before. You don't pour oil in the pan for cooking steaks. You put it on the meat. Okay, now I'm going to let this sit a little bit longer. I've already let it sit for about 30 minutes before I even began. Now we're going to let it sit a few more minutes while this pan gets smoking hot. I have a cast iron pan here that's at about 300 degrees Celsius, about 600 Fahrenheit, something like that. I'm putting the salt and pepper side down here. And we're not looking to get a heavy crust on it. It's not like when we cook other kinds of steak. Mostly what we're looking for here is we want to kill all the bacteria around the edges, because it's going to have this long cooking time where if there's bacteria around the edges, it's going to rot the meat, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to have bacteria develop in it, so we need to completely sterilize the outside surface. But on this one surface, on the surface where there's the salt and the pepper, there we also want to develop some flavor. It's been about 3 minutes now. I'm just going to turn it over and check it out. Now, this looks good. This is what you want to see. It's not a heavy crust on there, but I mean, you can see this has definitely been cooked well. And the other sides, I'm only going to give them about when I said a minute to a minute and a half, I mean a minute to a minute and a half in all, for all the rest of the sides. We don't want to overcook this. Make sure you get the edges. Again, we're going to make damn sure that any bacteria that was on here has been completely destroyed by the heat. And you can also give it, this is another reason too, by the way, why you want a nice thick steak, because then you can sit it up on the ends. If you're trying to do this with a little thin piece of meat, it ain't going to work, because you just got to sit there and hold it the whole time, and there'll be little nooks and crevices that won't get cooked well. Okay, this is looking pretty good right now. That's it. This is enough for this one. Now I'm going to repeat the process. Okay, this goes on a plate. This is going to rest for a few minutes. Now I'm going to wipe out the pan and do the same thing again with the other piece of meat. Here we are again. Obviously, be very careful when you wipe this out. Use paper towel and make sure that you don't splash yourself with the hot fat. I have the heat, by the way, on both the last steak and this one, maximum setting, full blast, as hot as you can possibly make it. And I'm using an infrared thermometer here to verify the temperature. The temperature in this case is 685 right now. 685. That's Fahrenheit. Celsius is about, I don't know, 350, something like that. Very, very, very hot. That's what you want. That way it'll kill any bacteria almost instantly. And also provide some really good flavor with this pepper and salt on the other side fairly quickly. So we give it 2 or 3 minutes on this side. Again, just like the last one, about a minute and a half divided around all the other surfaces, just to make sure it's sterile. Move it to a plate, let it cool off a little bit. While the steaks are cooling, I'm going to put the mortar and pestle here. Just give this a real rough crush of the garlic, like this. Then we're going to add the herbs in. You don't want to actually mince them or cut them too fine, because it'll be difficult to recover them later. Really, we just want to bruise them a little bit, get some of the oils out of them. And that's enough. This is going to work right here. Now I have a vacuum sealed bag here. I don't know if you can see this. This is like they call it Daisy Seal a Meal. You can use a regular Ziploc bag with no vacuum at all. You'll still get acceptable results. But if you can vacuum seal this, it'll be even better. So now I'm going to put in a restaurant, I would put the steaks individually, because you don't know when the orders are going to come in. But at home, if you're serving people, you know everybody's going to eat at the same time, so you can put it in at the same time. So we've got the meat in there. Going to put these herbs and garlic in with it. Now we've got some juices that collected when the meat was resting. We'll throw those back in as well. And we have that concentrated stock, the stock. Don't add too much of this, because the vacuum, it'll just suck it up into the vacuum motor. But this is how it should look at this point. Now I'm gonna vacuum seal it. Well, what I have here is an 8-liter actually I think it's a 10-liter stock pot, very large, and I'm taking a steamer basket, inverting it, dropping it into the bottom to keep the meat from touching it. There's hot water in here. It's about 52 degrees Celsius. It's just a little bit warmer than we want because when you put this relatively cold package into it, it's going to lower the temperature a little bit. Should lower it to somewhere around 50. Now, it's on the small burner, and I know from past experience that to maintain the temperature of about 50 degrees in here means I need to set my burner to about 2 3/4. You'll need to do some experiments here. Watch it the first couple times you do it, or if you're a real scientist, do it without anything in it and see what settings you need on your stove to create certain temperatures. So we're looking to maintain this at about 50 degrees Celsius for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, preferably 2 hours. And here we have the package after just over 2 hours. I'm going to cut this open, pair of scissors. I'm going to save the liquid contents in here to make a pan sauce from. So here we have the meat removed to a plate. I've passed the liquid from this into a pan. Remember, there's no real time constraint here on how long it takes you. Once it's out of the quasi sous vide stage, there's really there's a lot of time available. And again, reducing the liquid from this down on a medium heat. Don't bring it to a rapid boil, that will ruin the flavor. Just let it go slowly. Well, back to the cast iron pan here. This is heated to about 250 Celsius. Now we're going to give it a good crust on both sides, but doesn't need any internal cooking because it's already completely cooked inside. And about 2 minutes, something like that. Flip it over. Add a piece of butter over the top of this, keep it moist. After another minute or two on the other side, I'm going to remove this to a plate here. And I'm going to repeat this to the other steak. And here we go on the other side for this one. Fantastic. A little bit of butter. And we've got the two steaks here. I'm taking the juices and I'm draining them into this sauce. We're just going to continue to reduce while the steaks relax a little bit. After 15 or 20 minutes, it's considerably less in volume, and you can see it's thicker. Now we're going to mix it in. We have a mixing bowl with about a tablespoon of butter. I'm going to pass this through a sieve again, get rid of any solids, in with the butter, and the residual heat from this will melt the butter and create the sauce. You might want to add, depends on you, but you might want to add a drop of red or brown food coloring to this. I did add 2 drops of red food coloring to this. You don't have to. This is very thick, very salty. Obviously, this is not really a sauce. It's just a little plating element. You're gonna trace some lines on the plate and underneath the steak with this. It's not gonna be something you're gonna pour over the top of the steak. Now you have the meat to address. How you want to deal with this is up to you. You've got this band, because of the type of cut that it is, you've got this band of fatty and tough connective tissue around the edge. You can just slice it diagonally along here and let the person who's eating pick that off, or you can run a knife around, trace it around the edge, cut all this off before you slice it. It will not look quite as nice if you do that, because you're going to have this rough edges. It's totally a matter of personal choice. For me, I prefer it being pre-cut for me. I want this band cut off before it's on my plate. but it's up to you. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Here I've cut the band off. This makes absolutely awesome meatballs. Look up my recipe for the Alioto's meatballs. This is what you want to use for Alioto's meatballs. Cut it on the diagonal. And you can see that it's perfectly cooked inside. Well, what you end up with is something that's nice, tender, and compares very favorably with much more expensive cuts of meat.
The second volume of my cookbook is now available through Amazon and other booksellers. It covers the YouTube recipes from the last 8 months with more in-depth information. I received requests for the procedures on all recipes, and I've listened to you. Every recipe has step-by-step directions, and of course there are recipes that aren't on YouTube. But this is not just a recipe book. Far from it, as you can see from some of the topics scrolling by here. I'm certain that anyone who watches my channel and any serious cook will find this book a treasury of useful and new information you won't find anywhere else. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.